So I just knocked on every door in my town and said, hey, you can rent me and I'll do whatever you want. And that business was called Rent Sons at the time. And the tagline was quality service at the cost of an allowance without the complaining of an actual son. And ask yourself the life you want to live and build a business around that. The way to become rich is to put all your eggs in one basket and then watch that basket.
Welcome to the Franchise Freedom Podcast, where you can escape the corporate trap through franchise ownership. Here's your host, Giuseppe Grammatico, the franchise guide.
Welcome to the Franchise Freedom Podcast. I'm your host, Giuseppe Grammatico, your franchise guide, the show where we help corporate executives experience time and financial freedom. Thanks for joining us today. We have an awesome guest today. His name is Patrick Brown from Surv. Patrick, welcome to the show.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you coming on the show. We've been working closely the past month or so. Been meaning to have you on, and our guests, have been just great talking about franchise ownership, what it takes to start a franchise, and I'm really excited to get your insight. So before we dive in today, if you could give the audience a little bit of background on, who Patrick is and how you came up with Surv.
Yeah, sure. My name's Pat Brown. I'm the founder of a company called Surv. I started it in Little Compton, Rhode Island, which is the smallest town in the smallest state. And when I was in college, my family went wealthy to poor relatively fast. Parents lost their job. We lost our house. Our parents split up. And I needed a way to pay for school. So I just knocked on every door in my town and said, hey, you can rent me and I'll do whatever you want. And that business was called Rent Sons at the time. And the tagline was quality service at the cost of an allowance without the complaining of an actual son. And that no complaining guarantee did wonders for me. Always made sure I never complained, no matter how hard the job was.
No plain guarantee. I like that.
Yeah. And so I would generally, as I would knock on these doors, generally be older women answer the door, delighted to have me come do their to-do list. Whether it's weed the garden, clean the garage, put up the Christmas lights. I would come over on a weekly or monthly basis, and I loved it because I got to pay for school in cash. I got to build out meaningful relationships with people that became like family to me, especially as my home life was a little rocky. I got to learn all these interpersonal skills, these practical skills. I got to work around my schedule when I was going to college and also when I wanted to go surfing. And they loved it because they had a young person come over and do their to-do list projects and allow them to just age at home. They got to pour into me. They got to give me life advice. They got to have sort of jack of all trades, a one-stop shop for their whole home. And it became like really meaningful relationships to many of my homeowners, where now if I put you in my car and we drove around for a day, I could tell you a story of every homeowner. I can tell you about their kids, their families, people that have passed away. And I can't tell you what that does for my sense of belonging where I live, where I feel like I've provided a business that's a lifeline for so many people that if it went away, it would actually be really destructive to the community. So I think that's what I built there. And then we repeated in other markets when we started franchising. And I just love this business, and I would love to see people that have the same heart for their community bring it around where they are, so that we can really see some like national impact in what we're doing.
Awesome. And then that leads us to Surv. When was Surv founded? Talk to us a little bit about that and where you are today as far as where you're located.
Yeah, so kind of funny story. I built that business to pay for college, which was called Rent Sons. Mm-hmm. And then in college, I went off and built the nation's largest water special effects company called Aqua. I invented a water hologram, and it got picked up by the #1 DJ in the world for his US tour when I was in college. So I toured around the country and interned for myself my senior year. I had to still take Spanish. I failed Spanish, but I bribed my Spanish teacher with backstage passes to my concert and got a C+. So I was able to get out of school. Then I kind of hit it big. I became the water guy from the music industry and had a show at Madison Square Garden New Year's Eve with Fish. And had this moment where I felt like I was living a very flashy life, but I didn't feel like I was living a very fulfilling life of what I really was hoping for. And so just had this very clear moment where I looked in the mirror and I go, this is not what I want. And I want to have something that has like tremendous impact in whatever I'm spending my day and spending my time on. So took a step back, spent some time praying, and felt like God gave me like this desire to bring what I did for college, but build it around the country. And so that relaunched Surv really in sort of 2017. It was still called Rent Sons, and built that up But we were always doing this tech-enabled approach with the business and just realized that like to do this business well, it actually had to have that franchise touch where there's local owners that really care about their community, want to invest in their employees, build the relationships with the homeowners, and see all these relationships come together to benefit their community. And so in 2024, we actually just started franchising. So we started franchising it and brought on 4 franchisees so far, and have just been really impressed and really grateful for how well they've done. And now we're in the process of starting to scale it out nationally with these new partnerships that we've created recently.
I love that. Before we started recording here, we talk with a lot of people, first-time business owners. We're exploring different franchises, and we'll talk about their role, what's most important to them. And I never assume anything, right? Some people may say, well, the business obviously has to make money. And yes, we want a profitable business. But one request that I'm hearing more and more, and I've been hearing this probably since COVID, is I want a business to have that mission or that giving back to the community. It's got to be a feel good business, because yes, the business can be profitable, but I want to do good for my community. I want to leave a legacy. I want to leave something behind. So if you wouldn't mind, because Surv is definitely in line with someone looking for that type of business, if you could talk to us a little bit more about the mission, the values, maybe even a story, if you can even share that, of a current franchisee.
Yeah, the mission of the business is to elevate the next generation through meeting the needs of the community. The real heart that we've had is growing young people that have worked in the field and having go out and serve primarily the elderly. Since we've grown, we've expanded that. We have people of all ages work for us, and we're serving all types of ages. But that was like the original heart of that. Because when I had that time between Aqua and Surv, I had a friend die of drug overdose and a friend die of suicide. And these were great people. They weren't people that you would ever expected. And I've had more and more friends that has happened to, and just realized that there is like a major issue with young people. Like a lot of them, the number one killer of young people is suicide. Many of them are very disconnected from their generation. I think only 6% of Gen Z know anyone outside of their generation besides their parents. And so, I found that there was this beautiful thing that happens when you take young people serving the elderly, helping with these regular tasks, having this symbiotic relationship where the elderly is benefiting even relationally from the kind of companionship element, and the young person are being inspired by helping older people. It really, I think, does a lot of good healing for young people. Getting a tip every day, getting a job done, not being on your phone all day, interacting with all different types of people, different communication types. And so to me, I feel like when I'm wanting to build a business, like I want something that makes me come alive. I remember with Aqua, the ticket we sold, we gave a month of clean water to someone in Ghana. And so the water crisis was what really killed me, because that was the number one killer for, I think it was like 1 in 5. I can't remember the fact right now. I think it was like 1 in 5 people don't make it to the age of 5 in a lot of parts of Africa because of unclean drinking water.
Wow.
And so this cause of just really young adult mental health was what really drove me and got me really excited. And then also what it was doing for seniors, that 1/5 of America is going to be 65 plus by 2030 and 1/4 by 2050. And these at-home projects are barriers to staying at home, and they're being forced to assisted living. And it's like, how can we do that to our elderly? Like, we need to have a solution for them. So those two causes rose up, and those just made me like really come alive. And I never am like bored or regretting doing what I'm doing, because of, I think, the deep why that lives in me. So that would be my advice if anyone's thinking about starting a business or looking for a franchise. Like, hey, what is it that makes you come alive, and go do that? Don't just look at, the dollar amount or et cetera, because I think that's an empty road, sort of like this, I'm a Christian. The business isn't Christian, but I have a lot of ethos in that. But, there's this verse that says, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? It's like, if you go out and build a business that's just about money, like, sure, you gain the whole world. But if it's not like invigorating your why and getting excited, you've now lost your soul. And what's the win then at that point?
Yeah, it's, I talk about sustainability in the business, right? People burn out quickly if the match isn't there, if there's not this sense of purpose. So I always talk about sustainability, the match, the purpose in the business itself. So that is, I think, extremely important. And it's something that people don't normally think about, right? They go in and just, what's the hot business? How do I get involved? What kind of money I can make? And once they dig a little bit deeper, it's like, wow, there are other options out there. There are better matches for me. I really like that. On Surv, if you could run us down the business model, the right fit, essentially your franchise avatar, and what does that business look like? As far as the team, is this a W-2 or 1099 model? What type of tasks are you able to handle for both seniors and busy families?
Serves as a to-do list membership for homeowners. So we do all the low-level tasks around the house. Our core four is moving and junk, one category, exterior cleaning, which includes window washing, power washing, and gutter cleaning. Then we have odd jobs, which is a little bit of a catch-all. That can be general assistance, like you just want help moving a couch, you want help with this, etc. And then you have the to-do list membership for homeowners, and we do all the basic odd jobs around the house to help people live fuller lives at home. Both the busy family that doesn't have time for it, and also the senior that's trying to age at place. So we have core four services, we like to think, which is moving and junk removal as one category. That could be moving furniture around the house, a local move down the street, getting rid of some junk, decluttering. That's one bucket. Next one is yard work. So that could be like weeding, edging, mulching, pruning. That's this next bucket. The third, I would say, is the odd jobs, which is all of the different catch-all bucket, general assistance, maybe just want a helping hand. We have a do with you model where the homeowner can hire you to help you around the house with projects, because many homeowners still want to get their hands dirty, and just having an extra hand is all they really need. And then the exterior cleaning, which is your power washing, soft washing, window washing, gutter cleaning. So that's just anything exterior to make the house look cleaner.
And are these the people doing the actual work? Are they W-2? What does that look like? Is the franchise owner hiring these individuals directly?
Yeah, primarily W-2. We start with a really small team. It could be as small as you and one other person. We like to have a group of two to four, but we would talk to you about that with that franchisee when they onboarded. And they can add in, as they scale up the model, they can add in some 1099, but we primarily like to keep, W-2, trucks, tools, uniforms, like really having everything under control and not all subbed out.
Gotcha. And from the franchisee standpoint, what is the franchisees kind of, what are they doing on a daily basis, and what support are they getting? Is it marketing being handled at the franchisor level? What are they doing to generate leads and business?
So the community partner franchisee, they really take one of two roles: the community manager or the community business developer. So they can either run the day-to-day operations and get their hands dirty in the field and make sure everything's running smoothly, or they can go out and be the face of the business, networking with a lot of realtors, interior designers, property managers, senior care agencies. Like there's many different ways that we generate business, and they can really take one of those two seats. And we recommend that they hire that second position. And then what we provide as a franchisor, and one thing that we've kind of left out is we did this deal with a group called Cornerstone about 6 months ago, and have brought in incredible infrastructure. Our sister company's First Light Home Care, that has 300 franchisees doing incredible volume per franchisee unit volume. And they've brought all of our back-end support so that make sure that we could really support the franchisees well. And we just brought on recently a brand president, a man named David Dunsmere, that helped build Home Depot, as really leading up the charge. And so, we're wrapping, our arms around the franchisee to really give them the business in a box so that they don't have to do a lot of thinking. All they have to do is follow the playbook. So everything you could think, from marketing, from print, digital, all your B2B, your third-party lead gen, your door-to-door sales, your cold call sales, recruiting tools, all the business presentations, anything that they could ever think they would ever need. We give from a marketing perspective. We bring up the technology to help run the day-to-day operations, from their reporting, scheduling, dispatching, quoting, follow-up, all of the nurturing sequences that need to do with the customer, everything with their QuickBooks, their financial tools, their projections, helping them with recommendations with HR. It's really like anything that they could need in a business, like we have it for them, but it's them to go out and execute and build it locally in their community.
Gotcha. So you had mentioned with Cornerstone. So it sounds like if you're a Surv franchisee, you're going to be essentially that's who you're going to be working with, the people at First Light. So if a franchisee at First Light is taking care of a, mom or dad, can actively go in there and handle the to-do list. If I'm not if I understood correctly.
Yeah, so that's a nice thing about the sister company. Every franchisee from First Light has, it's their own business, but we make that strategic introduction, and we like to find ways that they can overlap so that we can go out and help the same customers. And also, First Light has a lot of referral partners, people that they're getting leads from for their clients that they can be leveraged as well. So we try to find ways between the two that they can symbiotically help each other.
Love that. No, that's awesome. Yeah. So, I'm sure with 300 franchisees, there's probably a franchisee in your market that you can work directly with day one. So that's a huge bonus. Anything and whatever you can share, and maybe you can't share at this time, but anything new on the horizon with Surv? Any changes, any additions, anything you anticipate going into the end of the year?
Yeah, I mean, we've just brought on incredible talent, people that have built Home Depot, Rebath, Lumber Liquidators, Pro Painters, and Service Master. And so we've brought on like centuries of experience to the table of the leadership team. And we've raised a lot of capital to be able to put things into place to make sure that the franchisees are getting the support of a seasoned franchise business, but they're getting the attention of a new emerging franchise. So there's a lot of, great, aspects being rolled out all the time. We're improving our CRM, we're improving new technology, we're improving our digital marketing. We just rolled out a new micro website. Highly recommend check it out, wesurv.com. You can see how each franchisee has their own like micro site. So it doesn't look like it's just a page on a site that's like kind of, lackluster, but it actually feels like their own living portal. So putting a lot of scalable infrastructure in place that, with good security, good backing, and good, marketing, so the franchisees do really well.
Awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. One thing, we talked about in the beginning of the show, switching gears a little bit, is, we'll have maybe not necessarily the founders of brands, but you being the founder of the brand, we can have this discussion. But there are people that I speak with, and not an area I specialize in, but we do work with other partners. Advice you would give to someone that maybe has a business that they've launched, that they are thinking of franchising, so essentially becoming a franchisor. Any advice that you would give? Because this is an area where I feel like I'm getting about a call a week. Someone saying, you know what, I got a great concept I want to franchise. Where do we start? How much money do I need? And we don't have to get to those specifics, but do you recommend it? And obviously everyone's situation is different. What kind of advice would you give to someone that's looking to franchise their business?
Yeah, so it's funny you say that, because I had someone reach out recently asking me to take a call with someone that was thinking about franchising their business. And this is really what I told them. So the first thing you need to do is have unit level profitability. So you have to think that if you were to break your business down and show it as a one location franchise, like whatever size territory you want to sell, whether it's the population, number of households, etc., you need to think that whatever that net income is that going to be attractive enough for someone to quit their job and make enough there? So I think that's the first thing, because it's my advisor, Peter Barkman, that helped build Pro Painters. He says it's the head and the heart. Like the heart, they can really get behind it and really want it. But if they can't make enough money, they're never going to be able to get their head to rationalize making the impact. So that's a big one. I would also recommend in that process researching FDDs of comparable businesses that are close to you. So if you're in the painting business, perhaps look at Pro Painter, Easy Painting, whatever it may be. Take their FDDs. I'd recommend throwing them in ChatGPT and ask the differences between their item 19, their item 6, and their item 7. So you can really see what are the differences, the startup costs, the ongoing costs, and what the profitability of a franchise may be. The second one is I would recommend trying to have as low of startup costs as possible, but enough where they can get an SBA loan. So I'm not going to say numbers, but I would recommend looking up what other startup costs are and try to fall in that range so that it's easy for someone to get into, but not so easy that they're not going to care if they bought a franchise. And I think the target is to really try to get them in this model that you're making to cash flow positive as quick as possible. I think the third thing is they should have a unique concept that's repeatable, ideally with some sort of moat where they can't go and do it on their own. They need to see your franchisor and say, I don't want to do it without them, and I'm going to be like way more successful when I do it with them. And the franchise fee and the royalty fully justify the support that you're going to get. And I would recommend there's a book called E-Myth. I think that's a great franchise book to read if you're just starting out. The fourth is I think I would spend a year or two getting those financials to the place where we need to be. I know you may be eager to get going, but if you don't have like a strong item 19, which is your year-to-date financials, it's not going to be compelling enough for someone to really want to buy a franchise. So it may feel slow at the beginning, but just focus on getting your business as profitably as possible. And I would recommend consulting with a franchise consultant once you do that to build their FTD and operations manual, which is where everything should come from. That should be how you run your business. Those two documents are really critical. I would recommend S&B franchising if you're looking for someone. And I worked with Nicola Law. They were also incredible at getting it going. So I highly recommend those two firms. Next, I would recommend is getting 3 to 5 people that want to become your beta franchisees and just work out the kinks with them. Give them a good deal since they're in the Founders Club. Help them be very successful and just focus all your energy on getting them to the kinds of numbers that you want to show in your FTD. After 1 to 2 years, I would explore organic, paid, and broker channels to help scale up your franchise. I recommend going to the IFA and also Springboard Conference to network and learn a lot. I think other founders and even vendors can be some of your best friends in trying to learn how to franchise well, especially in like your size area, say the 1 to 50 units, but then also getting advice from the people in the 100 to 300 units, because they can tell you some of the horror stories of that. One of the classic ones I always hear is like, careful of who your first 10 franchisees are, because they're always like wanting to get rid of them. I'm very fortunate. Mine are incredible. But I've heard that's a horror story that people say. And the last one I said is I would get 3 to 5 franchise advisors that have been in franchising for over 10 years, ideally a founder and an operator.
Love that. Wow. That was very detailed. So I actually, while we were talking, right before our conversation, I was like, you know what, maybe we talk about this as well, because it came up recently on a call. I really appreciate the feedback, and that was very thorough, because the people don't know where to start. I was just watching, it was a podcast or interviewing the president of the IFA, and they were saying that 75% of people that they've interviewed were interested in starting a business. Of that group of people, another 75%, 3/4 of those people never started the business because they didn't know where to start, which I found pretty amazing in this day and age where there's so much information out there. And maybe it's because it's information overload, but I kind of liked how you had utilized a Chat GPT or a Gemini to compare, as you mentioned, maybe FDVs and things like that, and use technology. You're using it at the franchisor level. Why not use it in your research? So I think that's some great advice. And I don't know why I didn't think of that. I use it for other things and creating social posts, but that was a very good point. So I do appreciate that. Well, I always getting towards the end, ask about a fun fact. You already shared that. So wanted to spend a little time in this topic, but and we touch on it as well. Advice you would give as a starting point. So franchise aside, we're just talking about just thinking of owning a business. What advice would you give yourself, or what advice would you give that corporate exec that doesn't know where to start? Maybe they just, not happy with their job. They want some type of change, or maybe they're liking their job, but the hours are so crazy that, they're missing the kids' soccer games and events and things like that. What advice would you give as far as general advice, and then maybe advice on kind of where to start?
Yeah, I would say, ask yourself the life you want to live and build a business around that. Mm-hmm. That's the big one. And then ask yourself what makes you come alive, like I mentioned earlier. I built Aqua. It was a really cool business, but I was working 20-hour days. I was living on a tour bus, living in Vegas. Like, it wasn't exactly the life I really wanted to live. With Surv, like, I have a much like better, well-balanced life where I'm getting to pour into young people and talk to lovely old ladies. Like it's a wonderful life, So that is an important one. And I think the why part, like if you aren't excited about what you're doing and you don't believe in what you're doing, like, I don't know about you, but I can last more than a week. I just completely give up and don't care anymore.
Right.
So I think that's important. And then the third, like, does the business idea you have, like, have the potential to make any money? Like, model it out. You don't have to be crazy Excel, but just go through it and have some friends look at it and go, is this sound realistic? Is it not? It might be a little crazy, but just make sure that whatever you're building actually has like some opportunity to make real money. And I think that's the nice part of franchising. It's like, it's less of a guessing game. It's like you put your fee down, pay a royalty, and like you get the entrepreneurship, and the lifestyle, but you don't have to like risk it all
Right.
on, building your own thing that it has a probably higher likelihood of failure. And I think, for starting, if you're going to start fresh, like what I did is, I got a notebook. I wrote down, I had my business idea. I had everything all that was inspired. And I wrote everything I think I could ever think of that I would need to do. And then I broke it into weeks. And so I was like, okay, this is a marketing week. Everything this week is all marketing. I'm not going to do anything but marketing. Next week's sales. All I'm gonna do is sales. Next week I'm gonna do is, and what that does is like the power of focus allows you to do exponentially more, especially when you give yourself like a tight time frame. Your body's gonna be able to complete way more tasks than if you don't. And you got to jump at some point, and honestly, the best times I've performed my business is when I had a fire under my butt, when I really needed to perform. Like that's when I was really successful. And if you think about all like the richest people in the world, all the billionaires, almost all of them dropped out of college or high school, and they like had to make it work. And sometimes like having too much of a cushion can like it can be your detriment. It gets you to be lazy, you
Right.
don't move as quickly. So that fire is a good thing. And like you don't want to lose that fire because that fire is a good thing. And like
I agree. I know when I started my first franchise, I signed the franchise agreement February 2nd of 2007, and we found out my wife was expecting 3 days later. So that was my fire. I'm like, man, we gotta make this work. We're on one income now. I had left my job, but that's true. This idea of focus is huge, and people are like, yeah, I know you have to focus. And then I talk to new franchisees, and they got a franchise, they got a side hustle, they have 20 things going on, and it's like, that's fine. You want to diversify, but how do you really go 100% if you have 20 different things you're balancing? So the power of focus is huge. And I talk a lot about the idea of owning the calendar, putting your personal stuff, your rocks on the calendar, making sure you're focused, and handling all the personal stuff. Like I will never miss a family event for work. Work is always kind of second, right? I get everything personal on, and then I open up the calendar.
Yeah.
But prioritize what's going on in your life. But secondly, focus on one thing at a time and go all in. Give it all you got. Get that business up and running. You may not need 5 different side hustles and businesses. When you go all in on one, there's some power there. I've definitely seen some magic. When I left my job and put aside sold my side business and just focused on my one franchise, we grew, and it wasn't like 10, 20%. We grew exponentially. So that is some great advice. So I greatly appreciate that. Anything else that we did not talk about as we wrap up the episode? Anything we did not talk about? Advice or any topic that you'd like to share, or advice?
Yeah, just maybe a quote I love that I was just touching on what you said is Andrew Carnegie. It's actually Carnegie, not Carnegie. Fun fact. Second richest man of all time. Well, who knows now if Elon Musk and everybody else. But he said, the way to become rich is to put all your eggs in one basket and then watch that basket. He says that people that carry the most baskets end up breaking the most eggs in America.
And you said to watch that basket, you said? I'm sorry.
To watch that basket.
Gotcha.
Like focus your energy and your talents and all of your capital and everything on one area and just make it work. Don't get too distracted. Like humans think they can multitask, but it's proven that you can't. So having that focus is going to propel much more success than being too diversified.
I love that, and he's definitely a very, very successful guy. So I would definitely, those are words of wisdom. I like that quote. That's something I'm going to steal and definitely use on a future episode, but couldn't agree more. But Pat, I really appreciate your time. This was fun. I'm sure we'll continue this conversation. Looking forward to working with you. And yeah, we'll let you know. Show should go live here in a few weeks.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks again.
Thanks for tuning in. If you want to learn how to make the transition from corporate to owning your franchise, join Giuseppe on the next episode. You can also follow on all social media platforms and achieve financial and time freedom today.